you like run?
Short hop. You did it once.
Whoa, am I getting like attacked?
Jaden, you killed me. You have killed me.
I did not.
Yes, you did. You
I am the straight around. What happened? Oh, I think I just. Yeah, I killed myself. I don't even know who I'm hitting. Oh no, oil. My hammer. My hammer's super good.
Jaden, just watch where I am and just don't do it.
Oh, I just died. Wow. Yeah, I slammed you.
You can have one of my lives.
No, I'm fine.
What about the flower up there?
I know, but I killed James before, and that was all.
Oh, you missed the
You're the greatest!
You played yourself. Jaden, just stop. You were actively running up to me and killing me.
I'm just hitting people. I don't know who I'm hitting, but I'm hitting someone.
You are the worst teammate.
Good
This
job,
is a
James.
1v1v3. Pretty much, yeah. What?
I'm not even trying to hurt you. Stay away from me. I killed him. Okay, and then maybe you will. I'm just curious.
Those hammers are perfect.
They're not fast, but they're efficient. I'm so good.
I told you to check out the map selection, but you just.
Give me a high five, Andrew. I'm now
You don't
done.
deserve it. You don't deserve that. You don't deserve it.
No fair. Doom is too overpowered. Doom is overpowered. Even Nikki's still alive.
We gotta get a
You
stand
realize
here.
just that I hit you if I see
I
space
should
as
bring
many
mine
times
to
as I can. You will one day just fly off the map.
Oh, it's
I will apparently now. Go for it. No, you're probably gonna get my controller then. I'm doing awful.
oh, fucking, oh.
Ooh, I grabbed it. Who are you? No fair. Why do I have to be against Andrew? Why can't you be against Andrew?
Oh,
Who am I against?
Go ahead and take those ice
You're
climbers
against
if you want.
Caleb. Oh, I'm against Caleb? That explains why he's doing really good. I thought I was against you.
Good morning, Nathan.
Good. What's wrong? Beef is off. No offense, James. Wow, I'm so bad. But you can't even get off the floor.
The one place I never thought about. I literally thought that
I know.
What did I hit? You see that?
for this to fit inside. They're big ones.
Oh, ice
I
climber.
know how to beat you. Are you Falco?
Oh, ice climber died. Oh, duh.
How did you guys not die?
Hit him. Just jump up and hit him. That's instinct.
Just die already, Christian.
Kill ice
Why
climber.
can't you just die? You must have gifted
like,
your dead.
I like Christian's plan. His plan.
Finally! No, I need to get back.
Die, man. Oh, what was that? That was awful.
Why do you refuse to die?
Because that's life for you.
Ouch! Yes!
Oh, no.
Finally, are you...
Ah!
Why won't you die?
Pretty good arrow I got
Just
there.
die. Just die.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, that was a landmine right
Oh
there.
man.
Stop.
Now
Yes,
press
Jane
it.
died!
Now do it.
I'm trying to steal your life.
Stop.
You got it. You got one.
You just need to press it
Oh,
once.
I did. Sweet, I got you life. I'll
Now
fight
kill him with
Caleb.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, I can kill Caleb so easily, but I can't kill Christian.
Can you?
No, I can't.
I got Jane.
No! Leave me alone! I hate you, you creepy weirdo. No! Yes!
Oh, that was so
Never
close.
died.
Guess I just couldn't
Oh wait,
do it
Jaden.
again.
I mean, Caleb
Alright,
got
who's
last.
up? I got last, man.
Wait, technically, didn't Jaden?
But if their team
no,
wins,
but
they-
I
it doesn't
called
matter.
my life back. Okay, this is scary.
Oh.
See, I only
This
hit the
game
finally.
is gratitude.
Don't you come over
How's
here.
it going, Lexi?
Martha,
This
may
is
come
so
over here.
sad. Oh man. Oh, this is ridiculous.
Don't hurt me. He never dies. Whoa, Marth, what was that? Martha, you actually trying to kill me.
I mean, fair is fair.
Oh, I didn't-
That was an accident. Not really. Now you know how I feel.
Oh man. Oh no, you're gonna die. I
Kill
wasn't-
you.
It's
You
the
horrible
box fault.
beast of death.
It's the box.
Stop running. What are you doing?
Bye bye.
Oh
What were you
man.
thinking?
Wait, where am I?
You killed yourself.
Yes!
How did he
Yes.
kill himself?
And I was
Wow,
gonna
no.
steal mine.
Oh
More
well.
specifically, the landmine.
You know, we make a good team. You have to admit that. I may kill you a lot of the
There's
time.
really
Wow.
no good team that can be combined
just have to
out
be
of you guys.
separated.
You guys are all
Marth, this.
just out. I mean, Christian did pretty good.
That was so
Christian,
good.
I don't know why I can't kill Christian, but I
Jaden,
can
you're
kill
terrible.
Why
You're
can
just
I?
the worst.
The one who killed you
Here,
3 times.
Here's what you need to do. You need to pretend that I'm on your
I
team,
killed you twice.
and then you'll be able to
You
kill
didn't
me.
kill me not once. I killed you twice. Yes, I love this one.
I like this one. This is good.
Oh.
This is a good one. Classic.
Oops, I missed.
Ooh.
It's not
This is a good one.
There's no
Oh no,
area.
Club, I thought you.
Wow, I already killed
See ya,
myself.
Fox.
Christian.
Oh well, at least I put my controller to you though.
I mean, I
You know
guess,
it's wrong.
but I mean,
Why would
I
you do
expect
it?
great things out of you.
Oh,
Or at
I
least,
thought
like,
you were my dad at first. I
semi-decent
was like,
things.
why are you up here?
That's what I thought too. I was like, why?
Your dad isn't up here. That's just your moral compass finally growing a voice.
Oh, okay.
I'm your
I'm
father.
shooting me. I'm shooting me. That's awesome. Don't keep doing that. I honestly do not mind.
Just
That is
good.
awesome.
Up his damage to like 7
Just
billion.
wait till that bomb falls down in the Starbucks right in front of his face.
Wow. You guys are like all just trying to hurt
The
me.
true metaphysics.
Ah,
No,
oh,
no,
I
no,
got
no,
some
no.
shit.
The bomb,
Ah.
the bomb,
Liam!
I knew that was coming.
You're going down,
The
Club.
bomb.
You're going down.
Nope, I got pineapple.
Alright, so you take
The
a
bomb.
you tap.
You hit the bottom of the stage.
Everyone's dying.
Man.
So you can't recover.
I don't
Oh,
die.
Oh,
Like a
no.
punch.
Oh, no.
That's your own guy.
It's a
I am
bomb.
Liam!
Oh, no, I
my
started to get
goodness.
blown
Got
up.
X climbers.
You did get me once. I'm still in.
That's why it's technically you have 2 characters, so
Oh.
Hey,
check it,
hey,
mate.
Mr. Madden.
Everyone who kills
Oh,
me
look
is
out.
technically
Where's the
Oh,
chair?
I just got blown up.
Oh, that's what I forgot. My bad.
No.
Oh, I thought that was me.
Yeah.
They're
It's,
in the.
he's literally getting paid to switch over the room, and he
Oh.
consistently forgets one thing.
I'm gonna expect
He's
great.
getting paid for it, and I won't help.
Hey, oh, you're due. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
it's a thingy that spins around.
He probably won't log the hours this morning,
Oh,
but he certainly logged the hours in which he was supposed to do it on Saturday.
No,
Um,
Fox, get out of there,
Oh,
Fox.
Get out of the bomb.
Fireball.
Oh, what did you say, Jim?
I just. Oh my
Oh,
gosh, the songs.
Get a block.
Oh, that was me.
I will do that real quick.
I would prefer to do it myself only because I'm getting a cold,
Oh.
and to let you touch the keyboard and he touch the
Oh.
keyboard.
Well, Cody is sick.
Oh,
so
that's
Okay,
nice,
I'm
Caleb.
I don't
still
wanna
You
in.
can
be a
throw the
carrier.
musicians at me.
I might be a carrier, but he has, so.
Sorry,
Fox.
you're on my team.
Oh.
Fox! That's not Luigi, that's
Just won't
Mark.
touch anything.
We'll just stay 10 feet apart from each other at all times.
I know, I was hoping
I'm
Jane,
shooting
or
your
hoping
It's like watching salty
I'm
things.
Jane
too
wouldn't
busy.
be here because I'd be too
She's
busy.
not. She might be eventually,
Yes.
but yeah, Emily, I didn't
You
know
got
if you saw the
one
group text.
You got one
Yes,
shot.
I was
One
gonna
opportunity.
offer, but I'm glad
You
you
can have
answered
that
that one.
I'm shooting me.
I'm like hoping she wouldn't be here because I'd be too
Why are you
tempted to
guys
hold her.
obsessed with her?
I don't want to hold her and get her sick.
Oh.
Wow. You know that hurts
Eat
me.
the apple.
That hurts me to my
I accidentally just threw my apple.
Get it.
The both that
It hurts you to your apple
I
core?
threw it up.
I think I know.
Okay, that was only my second life.
Here's something you can see.
Fourth life lost.
Alright, watch out too. I'm using my C stick on Club.
up?
The bomb is gonna blow.
We have no video downstairs.
In the overflow?
In the overflow.
Watch out, watch out!
We got sound, but no pictures.
How about the hallway?
Just bomb it.
Huh?
Oh my.
What do you mean?
Like the TV for the ushers
Oh,
and the TV
Yeah,
on
I
counter,
popped
they
up my
get the
shield
signal.
there from my own
Okay.
teammate.
Yeah. It's a
Alright,
good
I'll be
thing.
right
Oh,
Okay,
what?
take Marcy's
Amazing.
second.
I got you.
I knew you were fast.
I'm on a
Alright,
mission for God.
There was no reason to attack her. He was gone. He was obviously on the other island, and I was chasing him. You watch.
Yeah, Jaden's doing like nothing.
Okay, Jaden.
I'm really sorry.
Eat the apple. It's delicious.
So I think people should know.
No, the apples are not delicious. No, I'm sorry,
Okay,
man.
well we are all set
I
here,
just,
but
I
now I'm
don't
going
know
to
what
leave.
to do.
Okay.
Make you happy.
If you guys want to start,
Stop.
get chairs and get one of those guys to do song clicky, that's fine. Just tell them to wash their hands after.
Okay. Sounds good. So I guess we'll do acoustics then.
Oh yeah.
It's fine. It's fine.
If you look and see, there's 3 channels already plugged into 1, 2, and 3.
Oh.
If you're using those 3 channels,
Oh, well, second, I didn't go out.
I believe it's the 2 mics, and it's one of the instrument channels.
Got an
It's
extra
probably
cord.
purple. So if you just go look at the board and see what 1, 2,
Oh
and 3
God,
are.
next
If it's purple, it's already set up.
We'll figure it out.
What?
Thank you.
Yes, you get to. No one else
Oh,
can.
dang, Leo gets it.
Second
Of course.
chance for a new beginning.
I'm
Alright,
gonna
guys.
Luigi this time.
Okay, since I suck at Fox, I'm not being him. I'm
Dibs
being
on Donkey Kong.
random. Oh no, I'm Fox
Who's
again.
on my team?
I'm doing random until I get someone I like. Actually, I'll just be.
Who's on my team?
5,
Yoshi's so bad.
4,
Yoshi
3,
Oh, Jesus,
2,
is such a
1.
Wow.
We're in Star Gems.
It's the best map I've
Oh, I
had.
love this one.
Oh, I've never used you before.
No, no.
I just like you and only
I'm
updates.
Yoshi.
Oh,
No.
come on. No, no, no. No. No, 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 no,
I was
no.
just being him for the heck of it. Woo! Nice shot, Liam. You just killed your own teammate.
Yeah, Leo, don't kill me. I'm sorry that I killed Andrew so many times. I just am really good with ice climbers, and I killed him. Yes.
Yeah, but
Okay, I killed you like 6 times in all the routes we played, so you cannot say that I'm not.
We played like 20 rounds.
oh, beat died.
Full health.
We played 3 rounds.
He's
He
beefy.
killed himself.
Nice job. Oh, my star. Star, not bad.
Oh, you're good. Oh, ow. Oh,
Your name is
you're
Lincoln,
so
you're Mark.
lucky that island was there, or else you would die.
Yeah.
Fireball, fireball.
No, I did not.
Fireball, Hadouken.
Juice.
Oh,
I
this
zero.
is Street Fighters. You're.
Oh, you threw a
I can't
bomb.
say that you're too young because you're old. I just killed Street Fighters. What? Where am I? Where am I?
Hey.
Me.
A cute little island. I'm sinking.
Well, I think that's bad.
I'm sinking. I can't go anywhere.
I have still 3 lives.
I'm stuck like right here.
Let's hope that's a good thing.
Oh, good, he died. If somebody comes down here, I'll swallow them teeth and not fall down.
Oh, that would be cool, but
I'm
I don't-
scared.
Well, he is a reptile,
I
so.
want to poop you.
Ah! Christian, what do you think of my toes?
Didn't she need sparkly? Did she need practice?
No, she's just working.
He's not Lexi.
So you
I just see your finger hovering around all the buttons, not quite knowing which one to.
now.
I
Oh.
think
See,
that's
now
something,
I-
right?
I had
We have
3
My
lives,
vocals
and now I'm at
and
1.
Liam's
Oh, wait, I
just
died?
my ukulele.
Yeah, you were
Okay.
paying attention.
And-
It rotated.
Oh, Master.
Apparently, I wasn't paying attention.
I didn't
good?
fall off
Yeah.
though. I think the fire
Is that
killed me.
too loud?
No, I'll mess with you.
Let me just test it
Hey.
out.
Ah!
You say I did something right? Electronically?
Oh, she hasn't done it.
No, it's like everything
Technology?
was
So awesome.
Is this?
Are you a
Oh,
temporary
yeah,
special
yeah,
attack,
yeah.
right?
so hot.
Oh, that's what I'm missing.
Ah. What's
Yes!
Ready for a special attack,
that?
Yoshi?
I grabbed them and you punched them.
Yay!
Oh,
Ooh, that might be.
Yay.
Maybe that?
Oops, that was an accident, but it worked.
Oh, good job! I like how I fireball
Maybe
you
turn-
as you did that.
Liam down.
It was just a fireball.
That was pretty good.
Whenever you
protect them from the Drew Hares. You can take their stuff all you want. I doubt the 5-year-old will be able to.
Yes. Oh, look at my hair. So beautiful, people. Look
So
at
Andrew,
Yeah?
Bob comes in this morning and delivers a message from Dick. There's no video in the classroom. So I'm thinking, okay, either school ministry or the men's dinner didn't put the input back, or the video cable's loose again, because it just gets loose eventually. So I run into the video room since I'm up here and just do what I do up here first. Check the S video leads, they're all solid.
Died like 2 times.
So then I went downstairs thinking you just gotta hit the right input.
That's all you need to do.
Yeah.
It's on computer, it needs to go.
Yeah. I get down there and it's working. It's on. There's people sitting in the overflow. And I look over to Dick like, what happened? Just remote batteries were dead.
Aww.
So, a lesson to you, when a user tells you what the error is, you can't believe them. You can only pretend to believe them. Because it will literally take you in the wrong direction 9 times out of 10.
Oh.
There's no signal. There's no video. AKA, I can't even turn the thing on. Completely and utterly different.
Oh,
You get two easily close together.
I think there's a landmine or something on the
Yeah, I prefer, just so you're in the loop, because you're setting these up over and over, to have enough distance here behind the chairs. So that, I mean, like, this guy's just in front of the screen like that.
Okay.
The reason is, when the kids lean back, if there's something 6 inches behind them, they'll do it through more of the service, putting additional stress on the chairs. If the thing behind them is over a foot away, they won't lean back as often.
Gotcha.
So the chairs will last
When they
longer.
do and they fall, will they hit their head on the table?
Probably.
Unless
Although some of them are
they're-
short, so they'll just clear it, because it's like a negative angle table size.
True.
So I died.
We should do a test.
What were you doing there?
If their head is here.
Oh, he just got hammered.
Yeah.
Yeah, just at the perfect point of
Just
aluminum
enough to
strip
make your
on
neck
that.
go like this.
Compress all spinal vertebra.
Oh, I'm
Yeah.
Donkey Kong.
For the chairs keep going down and you kind of do like a head to knee thing.
He looks like a cave Kirby.
Yeah.
Cave back.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're still gonna hit on the bottom. You literally have to be about this far away.
Into the screen. You have to be.
You'd have to be into the screen.
Yeah.
So I think the fix is we move the table back.
Or just tell them not to lean back.
No. Andrew,
I don't
now,
think really needs to be moved
now you're
yet.
dealing in quantum mechanics. That is a state that should never exist.
I think we know who's gonna win. That's our miracle.
All right, everybody, find a seat on the white chairs.
Never
No,
know.
no, press play, I'm about to kill Kirby.
Dang. Dude, why did you have to unpause it?
See? I'm like, press play.
I should have known to press it.
Good thing you
Free
did.
phone.
Free phone. I got this on.
We'll never know. But how's that?
Alright. Daniel, could you open us in prayer?
I would be delighted to.
Thank you.
Lord, we thank you for another chance to come before your throne. Help us to lift up your name, to worship you in spirit and in truth. We long to see your face this morning, Lord, and so we just ask, draw us closer. Bring us near to you. In all these things we pray them in your name. Amen.
Radiant diamonds bursting inside us, we cannot contain. Your love will surely come and find us like blazing wildfires, singing your name. God of mercy, sweet love of mine, I have surrendered to your desire. May this heart hallelujahs be multiplied. Your love is like radiant diamonds bursting inside us. We cannot contain. Your love will surely come find us like blazing wildfires, singing your name. God of mercy, sweet love of mine, I have surrendered to your design. May this offering stretch across the skies, and these hallelujahs be multiplied, and these hallelujahs be multiplied. Come, Lord Jesus, come. Come, Lord Jesus, come. All who are thirsty, all who are thirsty, all who are weak, come to the fountain. Dip your heart in the stream of life. Let the pain and the sorrow be washed away in the waves of His mercy. As deep cries out to deep, and we sing, come, Lord Jesus, come. Come, Lord Jesus, come. Sing, Holy Spirit, come. Holy Spirit, come. Holy Spirit, come. Come, Lord Jesus, come. Come, Lord Jesus, come. Could you guys stand for the last song if you're not already? Open our eyes, Lord, let us see all that you are, all that you mean. Open our ears, Lord, let us hear all that you are, be loud and clear. And please be near. And as our praises rise, may your presence fall. Heaven fall down. this place we welcome you in. Oh, come, Jesus, come, come like the rain. Open the sky, show us your face. Oh, Lord, we wait. And as our praises rise, may your presence fall. Heaven fall down. Spirit, pour out on us all now. Heaven fall down. And we're crying out in desperation, waiting now in expectation, crying out in desperation for you. And we're crying out in desperation, waiting now in expectation, crying out in desperation for you. Heaven fall down. Spirit, pour out on us all now. Heaven fall down. Heaven fall down. God, we love you so much, Lord. Thank you for every single person that's here this morning. Pray you bless this time as we get into your word. And speak through Daniel as you always do, Lord. Just continue to bless him and speak through him, Lord, and just be with us now, Lord. Well, we know you're here with us, but Lord, help us feel your presence here with us, and just we would just not take it for granted, but just do our best to glorify you, Lord, in all that we do, and just take this time seriously. We love you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you, Lexi. Thank you, Liam. You guys don't have a Bible. Time to get one.
Hey, Street, what the heck, man? Where's my Bible? Rest of you. Thought we were friends, man. Rest of you.
Cool beans. Open up your Bibles to 1 Samuel chapter 4. I have to apologize, Andrew. I know I told you what you're going to be studying eventually.
I figured it'd change.
But I felt bad you didn't get the story you were hoping for.
Did you tell me what I was going to be teaching on this week?
Nope.
I asked him.
I did too. I was
Yes.
like, hey Daniel, I texted him like, hey man, can I get like what am I gonna be He's like,
Sure
oh
that's
no, you gotta,
verbatim what you
you're
said.
gonna have to wait. What?
I'm sure that's verbatim what you said. Hey Daniel, can I
Oh no, jeez, Daniel.
Every syllable of that. That's how we text.
I
text
do.
to speech?
Text to speech, autocorrect off.
Autocorrect. It's stenography at that point.
I
You guys
said,
have never
what am
looked
I
into
teaching
stenography?
on next Wednesday?
Go watch a
Now,
YouTube video on
Wednesday
stenography.
is
Because
short and
that is
abbreviated to
super
when.
tough
So
subject.
next Wed.
Oh, see, he assumed you were teaching the next wedding.
Oh,
That's where the miscommunication
good grief! Which makes more sense why you said, I'm still figuring out what I'm doing tonight. It'd be good if you can make it tonight, then they can see what kind of thing you'll be leading.
Oh, so you texted him a week ago. Wow, I see how it is. I texted Daniel, he got back within minutes with exactly what I was
Yeah,
teaching. so.
yeah. He waited. Mine was sent at 3 p.m. His
See,
wasn't
oh,
until
let me
9:01
show you.
a.m. the next day.
Let me see. Okay.
So I mean that's. Whew. Texted him on a Tuesday. And he didn't get back to me until Wednesday in the morning.
Let's see, Daniel, here we go.
I don't know what's gonna happen here, but I'm gonna lose. That's all I
I
know.
texted him on
There are no winners of war.
September 4th. I said, just rolled up. You here yet, or should I go turn the alarm off on my way in?
Oh,
And
that's
then-
interesting. That's interesting.
And then 2 weeks later, he texted me back. You've got 9/24/2017. Try and come up 1 Samuel 5:1 through 7:2. I promise it's not as long as it sounds. So
I got back to Caleb in the same 24-hour window. I don't know what the big
2
deal
weeks
is.
after I texted Daniel, he responded to me.
That is how I roll.
Hey,
Because I didn't know what you were teaching until then. I texted you the moment I knew. Caleb? Sorry.
Also, the last text I sent you was regarding whether or not I should unlock the door because that alarm was on.
Man,
I saw you before I saw that text, though.
Daniel
Yeah,
really
but it was
gets,
the last text he responded to.
Daniel really, really likes to hold that 24-hour window at exactly 23 hours. He texted me back.
Oh, I got my
I was
my
like-
assignment done last night at exactly 11:59 p.m.
I was like,
That's
hey,
when
Daniel,
it was.
do you want to
supposed
grab breakfast tomorrow? And
Ladies,
it was like,
are you done?
noon.
Are you done, ladies? Good?
I won.
Okay. I won.
Glad that's settled.
All right. Daniel is a terrible person when it comes to communication. Are we good?
No,
we
no,
got
we're in
that?
Samuel.
We understood that?
We're in
Samuel.
Okay,
Samuel.
good.
Well,
Now let's move on to the next lesson of the day. 1 Samuel chapter 4. We have been looking at 2 different sets of characters. Today we're only going to focus on one of those 2 sets. We've been looking both at Samuel and his family, and then Eli and his family. Today, totally ignoring Samuel. Not even going to really bring him up. We're just going to talk about Eli and his family. Does anyone know who Eli is?
Ooh, gotta get ready for this one.
The high priest.
The high priest, well done. Does anyone know what parts of his family we know about so far? It's not like we've seen the whole family tree. We only know some of them.
Pretty much his 2 sons.
His 2 sons. Okay. Anyone know anything about his 2 sons?
Great guys.
Yeah.
They're horrible.
They're horrible.
They were struck from all record.
That's good. Horrible. I like that word. Yeah. Yeah.
They stole the meat from the sacrifices even before they got burned.
Yeah. Yeah. They did something else pretty bad too. Anyone else? They were seducing the servant women who worked at the temple. Well, the tabernacle. There was no temple yet. I keep making that mistake. I really apologize. I'm not trying to teach you the wrong thing. I swear. Yeah, they were seducing women. Does anyone remember the word the Bible used to describe them? It wasn't horrible, although I don't think you're wrong. Yeah?
Scoundrels.
Scoundrel. The Bible says they were scoundrels.
Doesn't sound so bad when you put it like that.
Scallywags.
That just
You know,
makes me think of
Han Solo is only a scoundrel in a children's film. These
a
guys,
children's film. Excuse
Ask-
me, George.
Ask
here we
George
go.
Lucas.
Oh.
Here we go.
However, these men were scoundrels in real life, and they are not the same thing at all. Not even close. They were bad. They were quite bad. And they were unrepentant. This is the deal. Their dad, the high priest, who's in charge, he is their boss, and their father, has already confronted them and told them they need to stop doing the crazy bad things that they're doing. And they just flat out didn't care. Didn't faze them. So yeah, they're given over to their own
You have to
lifestyle.
wonder like what they thought was gonna happen.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, they've seen some.
I
pretty
think they
awesome
probably would have
things.
heard. As we'll see today, rumors do not stay in small circles in Israel. Everybody knows everybody. The rumors fly fast. And so,
it's reality TV. It's just
if
reality.
you remember a few chapters back, Eli gets like some random stranger guy walking up and just with a prophecy from the Lord, you and your entire family are going to die. Everyone in your line will be scrubbed from the priestly, the job list. They don't get to work as priests anymore. And it's all because your sons are evil and you won't punish them. Like this was told to him in a public setting. I'm going to go ahead and just guarantee his sons have heard about this.
Oh, wow.
They had to have heard about this. So prophecy from the Lord, you're going to get punished. Everyone in your family's going to get punished because of the evil that you guys have wrought. And they're just like, yeah, whatever. We like being evil. All right, stupid heads.
I'd like to see God
So-
try to punish me.
Oh man, who was it? Was it Nebuchadnezzar? What God could save you then? All right, so we are in the Old Testament. If you guys are not familiar, we're over here in 1 Samuel, written around 930 BC. It was written by Samuel at the end of his life. However, this is towards the beginning of his life. Today, we'll see in this little stretch of time period where chapter 4 takes place, Samuel is somewhere between 13 and 22 years old. The discrepancy there is because our timeline is locked onto Samuel, but this chapter is all about Eli and says nothing about Samuel. So we don't know how old Samuel is while this takes place. We only know how old Eli is while this takes place, and Eli doesn't fit on the timeline in a nice, tidy fashion. He's got like a 9-year possible shift. So Samuel's age is currently off by 9 years, and we don't know which way it goes. Anyways, so this is somewhere between 1076 and 1067 BC. Well done, Caleb. Well done.
It's being distracting.
Well, you got rid of it. That's why I said well done.
Good job, you threw it over to Daniel's spot.
Yeah, and I can mess with it later. All right, so let's read the first verse of Samuel, 1 Samuel chapter 4. At that time, Israel was at war with the Philistines. The Israelite army was camped near Ebenezer, and the Philistines were at Aphek. And no, this is not Ebenezer Scrooge. This is the original Ebenezer. So here we are in Chico. Say hi, Chico. Bye, Chico.
Bye,
my.
Chico.
Oh no.
No, Chico.
Chico has suffered.
You gotta be careful. Sometimes you keep zooming out, you just end up at Pluto. It's
Wait,
terrible.
really?
Pluto's not a planet.
I didn't say it was a planet. Did you? All right, so we've already been up to Shiloh in this area, and today we're going to be talking about Aphek and Ebenezer. These two places are quite close together. If you look really close, you can actually kind of see there's just like a little valley right here in between the two.
What's that big?
So my guess is that, you know, one army in one place, one army in the other place, they're probably doing battle on a regular basis in the little tiny valley in between the two spots.
Mm-hmm.
Seems pretty logical. Yes.
What's that big thing?
The water,
Yeah.
the sea.
Oh,
Red
wait,
Sea,
what?
Red Sea.
How can
Galilee.
sea
Yeah,
be surrounded by
No, Red
land?
Sea's way down,
How
down
can
like
sea
here on
be
the map. You
surrounded
can't
by
even see it.
Yes.
All seas
Although
are
red
It's
sea.
actually
I feel like
spelling
the
error in
sea
the original. It's
is
supposed to be
surrounded
read
that
sea.
way, but this way there's no land.
All right. Anyways, I don't even know what the joke was there.
I don't
So
know.
yeah,
There
we
was
got
no
the
joke.
we got the Mediterranean out here. We got the Sea of Galilee here. There's like another sea in Israel. I can't remember the name of it. It's much smaller up there.
Black Sea. Israel Sea. Ocean.
It's a sea. I don't know. Anyways, so we're way out here. What's interesting, guys, is that Israel is this
Same
shape,
thing.
and the enemy
Very
is in Aphek. Think about that logistically for a second. This is the shape of Israel. The enemy is in Aphek. What is weird about that? What? Tell me, what's weird about that?
Like, they're like as far into the country as you can get.
Basically, they didn't come from the sea. They didn't come from the Mediterranean. They came from south.
Wait, they came from.
They came from the bottom. So
Oh
like
my
they
God.
have gone all the way through up to here. They're over halfway through the country. They've gone up the coast side. That's the nice part of the country. Notice how deserty it is, even over here by the sea and the river. And then how nice it is over here by the bigger sea. Interesting. That's just the way Israel's laid out. So they've gone through the nice chunk of land and just taken it. It's ours now. And now finally the army of Israel is like, let's go do battle again. And, well, we'll see. It's not actually going all that well. Read verses 2 and 3. Verse 2. The Philistines attacked and defeated the army of Israel, killing 4,000 men. After the battle was over, the troops retreated to their camp, and the elders of Israel asked, "Why did the Lord allow us to be defeated by the Philistines?" And as if that question did not need to be answered, then they said, "Let's bring the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord from Shiloh. If we carry it into battle with us, it will save us from our enemies." Okay, stop for a moment. Put yourself into the war room. Okay, there's all the smart old elders of Israel sitting around their big war table, and they're talking to each other about the recent military loss. And one person says, "Why did the Lord allow us to lose in the last battle?" And I'm sure he was about to finish. I'm sure he was just like, he was right about to say, "Do you think it's because of our wickedness in the sight of the Lord and the fact that we've been disobeying him for year after year after year, and we don't keep any of his tenets and we don't keep any of our promises?"
Because according to history, that's pretty
Basically
much
what
our
we've
issue
been
has
doing,
been
on and on and on and on. And you know, every single time we disobey him, then he leaves us out to dry, and we have to figure it out that we were supposed to stay with him. And he was probably going to say all that. But then, what's that guy who like slides in? Fonz. The Fonz busts in the room and says, "Hey, why don't we go get the Ark of the Covenant, bring it into battle, it'll make us win." And then everyone just files out of the room. Yeah! And then the old dude's left sitting at the table. Yeah, we're all going to die. That's basically how I see it going. Maybe I'm reading into it a little. I don't know. But it seems like a complete break. Like your brain got shut off and rebooted. Because when you ask the question, why did the Lord allow us to be defeated? You're implying that it wasn't like God on vacation, that it wasn't like a mistake, that it wasn't that God wasn't powerful enough. You're implying God could have saved you and he chose not to. That is what the question means. God could have saved us and he chose not to. So by asking that question, what you've done is you've basically said, there's something wrong with us. Not God. Us. Seems like you're like running in the right direction. Sprinting. Yes, we're almost there. We figured it out. We know what's wrong. We're going to have to change our... Hey, go grab the ark. It's a secret weapon. Charge into battle.
Just stick it in the battlefield, pull the sticks out, and they can never run past it, because every time they do, they just fall over dead.
I mean,
That's the real
that's the real
strategy.
meta right there.
You create a
Yeah.
defense
meta.
of just
No. The meta is
punching
you hang a
dogs.
sign on it. Please touch me. And then everyone walks up to the gold box and goes,
You're like,
oh!
No,
Magic
please
lamp
don't.
grants 3 wishes.
Don't you dare look at what's inside. That's
Exactly.
Win.
Oh, you just watch like 1,000 men just drop.
But this is the deal. The gold box, the Ark of the Covenant, it was never the magic thing. It was never the powerful object. It was never the thing that did anything.
Tell that to the guys who touched it.
You see, the gold box was made by humans. The gold box was made by normal people. They followed God's instructions, but normal, average people made this box. They were just jewelers and carpenters and all those kinds of people, and they just pounded out the gold till it was nice and thin. They nailed the wooden boards together. They covered the wood in gold. They did normal, fancy furniture work. Something fit for a king, but, king's thrones don't magically shoot out lasers and lightning. That's not normal. King's thrones just sit there as a chair. And so that's what the ark was meant to be. That's not how it was to them. They thought of it as an object of power. But really, what was it? Does anyone know? I hinted.
Gold box.
Good job.
Got
Okay. Anyone else? Yeah?
It was just a reminder. That's all it was a reminder of a promise.
Yeah. And inside were other reminders to go with that reminder. But it did still have a function. The box actually had a function. Does anyone know what it was?
Ooh, God dwelt in it. Or on it.
On it. This was God's earthly throne. I think it's really interesting that God's earthly throne was not made for the ergonomics of a backside. It wasn't like God's earthly throne actually had a cushioned seat and proper lumbar support. God's earthly throne was the fanciest, most ornate looking object you've ever seen in your entire life. And there was nowhere to sit on it. Not for a physical posterior. That wasn't its design. Because God is a spirit being, his throne on earth does not actually need to accommodate the weight of a person sitting. His throne on earth could literally be any object he chose. And all it really needed to do to be his throne was have him resting on it. That's it. But he has no physical form on earth, so he doesn't need a seat. It was his throne, though, because that's where he came down. That's where he would stay when his people needed to be near him. Yeah.
Is the Ark of Covenant still here today, or was it destroyed?
Okay,
You better
good
watch
question.
Indiana Jones.
Good question. Yeah,
Nazis
I will
have
refer you to
The
Indiana Jones for the
Nazis
answer
have
there.
it.
All right, so check out the next verse.
No, must be the Nazis.
We are going to be dealing with this place, Shiloh here. This is where the ark is stored. So they're literally going to send men. Grab the ark, quick! Okay, sure, why not? And run all the way back, before the next day's battle. So they need to do this overnight. It's like the highest...
You get express shipping.
I was going to say, man, it's going to be some expensive shipping. Now, this run is actually taking place twice in the story. The first time, it's to get the ark. Second time, well, I don't want to spoil it. But it's so ingrained in Israel's memory. They actually now run a marathon over this course.
So it's exactly 26 miles?
Good point. No, not technically a marathon. Just the spirit of a marathon.
Did they run that?
I should check. I don't actually know how. This might be more.
What if
I
that's
have no
the
idea.
standard for the marathon?
No. The standard for the marathon was set in this.
No. It's just doesn't matter. Another similar.
I think I'm right.
Similar story. Military news. It's all very
Ark of the
similar.
Covenant.
Yeah. No.
Did they have to carry a
If
paper
Euro dies at the
mache
end?
Ark of the Covenant?
In the race, no, because of how the
That makes
second
it less
run
fun.
in the story takes place. They don't. Okay. All right. Anyway, so the next set of verses, verses 4 through 11. Here's them going and getting the ark. So they sent men to Shiloh to bring the ark of the covenant of the Lord of heaven's armies, who is enthroned between the cherubim. Now the top of the ark, we don't actually know exactly what shape or what it looks like. There is these two angels whose wings nearly touch, and that is supposed to be where God actually rests, above the cherubim. As you can see, not a terribly comfortable seat for someone who has a physical existence. Alright, ba-doo. Verse 5. When all the Israelites saw the ark of the covenant of the Lord coming into the camp, their shout of joy was so loud it made the ground shake. Has anyone ever been to a concert where you physically feel the sound? No? Yes? You're just kind of wobbling in your seat. You're remembering what it felt like? Okay, good. Yeah, this is being produced by human vocal cords. That's scary.
Well, I mean, we saw Jericho, just their voices knocked on the walls.
Can you imagine if they could direct this and get like all the enemy armor to just fall off?
Yeah.
That was the power of God.
Oh no, armor.
No, it was the
Get
power of
back.
voices and music.
Voices.
Caleb, Lexi has a point, because we actually found Jericho, and there's this one section of wall perfectly left standing.
They didn't yell loud enough.
And it's
directional. Like
it's the one
It's a
spot. It's the one spot where there was a building built
sound
into the
waves.
wall.
Sound of the
It was Rahab's house. If it was sound waves, you couldn't pick which house was going to stay standing.
well,
Maybe they just mastered
you
it.
couldn't.
You do remember the beginning of the story where the Israelites thought the plan was crazy.
They were walking around
Not
the
like,
city,
oh good, we get to use
scoping
our
it out,
expert vocal vibration
scoping it out,
abilities.
and then they covered.
Thanks
part
God
of
for
the
choosing
wall
our strong
with
suit.
reflective material as they were scoping it out the 7 times they walked around. They covered.
See,
the
this is
wall.
why we need Caleb. I would never
You
think of
don't
these
need me.
things.
Just
Did they
continue.
I
feel
would
like
never
there's one
think of these
above
things.
kind of
You
scope
don't
out where the
know, you
houses
don't
We
need-
just
are?
continue.
Verse 6 says, "What's going on?" the Philistines asked. "What's all the shouting about in the Hebrew camp?" When they were told it was because the ark of the Lord had arrived, I wonder who told them. They panicked. "The gods have come into the camp!" they cried. "This is a disaster! We have never had to face anything like this before! Help!" I love that, right? Army, out at battle, you just won like 3,000-0 yesterday. You're like, help! Who are you even saying that to at this point? Who can save us from these mighty gods of Israel? They're the same gods who destroyed the Egyptians with plagues when Israel was in the wilderness.
They're not wrong.
I didn't say they're wrong. I just think this is a ridiculous leap for a bunch of pagans who want to see the Israelites dead and went to war with them, knowing this before they went to war with them.
I mean, yes.
That's where I'm going. Okay, anyways. Verse 9. "Fight as never before, Philistines! If you don't, we will become the Hebrew slaves just as they have been ours. Stand up like men and fight!" It's a pretty good pep talk, right? I like the part in the middle where they said, help. Alright, verse 10. "So the Philistines fought desperately, and Israel was defeated again. The ark did not help. In fact, it made it worse. The slaughter was great. 30,000 Israelite soldiers died that day.
Oh my
The
god.
survivors turned and fled to their tents. The ark of God was captured, and Hophni and Phinehas, the two sons of Eli, were killed." Now, we aren't given every detail, but generally speaking, the Ark of the Covenant is carried by
Levites.
Levites. More specifically, carried by
Priests.
priests. Phinehas and Hophni, they filled both bills. They were likely the ones carrying the ark. And I say likely because, A, usually it's priests that were carrying the ark. B, usually priests don't go into battle unless God says, "Hey, priest, I want you there." And since they died and the ark was captured all in the same battle, this all fits. It all makes sense. They were likely the two guys carrying the ark into battle, and when the army turned around and ran, a lot of people died. And the ark was left sitting there. I mean, which Israelite's going to pick up the thing that if you touch it in the wrong way, it kills you?
Not me.
If you touched.
When you're running for your life, your first thought is not, "Hey, look, there's a two-person carry object I'll try and bring back." If you see something so large it takes two people to carry and everyone's running for their lives, that object is going to stay there. That's just the way it works. If there's a suitcase full of money, someone's going to grab it. If there's a safe full of money, they're going to run right past it. That's human nature. So there's the Ark of the Covenant, the most valuable object in all of Israel. It just sits there. Everyone runs past it. The general idea, it's not worth my life. It's not worth my life. It's not worth my life.
But then again, they did lose 30,000 people, so I feel like maybe they were really trying to protect that. They thought it might have been worth their life.
At some point. At the other point, they gave up. All right, so Ark of the Covenant now sitting out in the middle of the battlefield. The Philistines who thought, the God of Israel will destroy us, have won. I mean, really beat the Israelites into the ground. And now there's the gold box of God sitting out in the battlefield.
Did anyone touch it and die?
Oh, just you wait and see. All right, check it out. Verses 12 through 17.
Oh my gosh.
A man from, oh, by the way, wait and see, that's next week. Verse 12. A man from the tribe of Benjamin ran from the battlefield and arrived at Shiloh later that same day. He had torn his clothes and put dust on his head to show his grief. That was normal for Israelites. Verse 13. Eli was waiting beside the road to hear the news of the battle. For his heart trembled for the safety of the ark of God. Notice it didn't say his heart trembled for the safety of his two sons who, like idiots, ran off to battle. Didn't say that. It said his heart trembled for the ark of God. Interesting. When the messenger arrived and told what had happened, an outcry resounded throughout the city. Rumors start spreading fast. What is all the noise about? Eli asked. The messenger rushed over to Eli, who was 98 years old and blind. That's why he has to ask what all the commotion is. He said to Eli, I have just come from the battlefield. I was there this very day. What happened, my son? Not what happened to my sons. What happened, my son? Eli demanded. Israel has been defeated by the Philistines, the messenger replied. The people have been slaughtered, and your two sons, Hophni and Phinehas, were also killed, and the Ark of the Covenant has been captured. When the messenger mentioned what had happened to the Ark of God, not to his two sons, Eli fell backward from his seat beside the gate. He broke his neck and died, for he was old and overweight. He had been Israel's judge for 40 years.
And very melodramatic. Have you noticed that like these guys are
Oh
all
my
really
God.
dramatic? They're like, ah! And, like, ah! I mean,
They don't really depict him
They're
very
just
fast.
they're just in touch with
He
their
is.
emotions.
He's like, oh!
He looks skinny in that picture. I mean,
Pretty fit, actually, yeah.
yeah.
You might be surprised to learn that there are very few pictures of Eli in mid-fall.
I guess so.
Most pictures are him getting the news or things I don't want to show you.
Well, now I want to see.
Let's see.
I'm just gonna Google
That messenger
Why-
just slapped him
why
in the
would you
face.
do that,
Yeah.
Aiden? After
He
you
just
said you
slapped
didn't
him in the
wanna-
face.
Now I
He's
wanna
slapping
know.
him
My
in the
favorite one is the Brick Bible.
like,
It's entirely Lego men. And so they they detach the head and then use wax to reattach it at an angle. And so it's like a Lego man backwards and his head is like
It's actually that's
doesn't that look like he just backhanded Eli?
it does.
yes, and now he's like holding his head because it hurt.
Oh!
He is blind. He didn't see it coming. It was a
Oh, you
blind
really did.
slap. No. He's gesturing off into the distance in the direction of the
Of the
battle.
flames.
See, this is
It
the
really
this is the
does.
open city gate right here, and so he's saying that way the battle
Like,
is
see the
went
flames, look at
terrible.
the flames.
You should point when you're talking about
And he
blind person.
smacked him because he didn't see it.
It just really does look
Yeah,
like
okay.
he backhanded it.
Got me there. Everyone did know Eli, so you're right. He should have known. All right, so 98
You should
fat-year-old
point for the blind man.
Eli
Fat
falls
girl.
back, breaks his neck.
Oh,
He dies. Hophni and Phinehas, they're dead. Does anyone remember what God's judgment was supposed to be, though?
they were gonna die.
It was more than that.
Oh.
It was more than that, yeah.
None of his descendants will be, the priest.
Correct. What were you going to say?
What is a fag?
You don't just add adjectives mid-sentence.
It's
That's not how you do
98
things.
It's a 98-year-old.
That's how I do
really
things.
Fat.
It's called the parenthetical remark. You can't use it wrong. That's what I learned in school. You can't. Okay, so read the next set of verses with me.
And what you were looking for was that his entire line would be scrubbed.
Yeah, there you go. They wouldn't all die. That's the interesting thing. That anyone who was left over would be left only to beg that they be let back into the priestly linehood. They would never be back in the linehood. What? Where are my words coming from? They would never get back into the priestly jobs.
There you go.
They would always want a job as a priest. They'd never actually get one. Okay, so this would cause them to largely be poor. Verse 19 through 22. Eli's daughter-in-law, the wife of Phinehas, was pregnant and near her time of delivery. When she heard that the ark of God had been captured and that her father-in-law and husband were dead, she went into labor and gave birth. There is no worse way to have labor be triggered than to get bad news. And that's pretty bad. Yeah. To get bad news and then go into labor, because now you are not thinking about the labor you're in. Your attention's divided. You're now stuck on this bad news that would normally take any average person weeks and weeks, if not months or even years, to process and go through. And now you're going through one of the most difficult things you could ever go through, and your brain is somewhere else. That's just terrible. But that's where she finds herself. All right, verse 20. She died in childbirth. But before she passed away, the midwives tried to encourage her. "Don't be afraid," they said. "You have a baby boy." But she did not answer or pay attention to them. She's in her own little world, guys. Verse 21, she named the child Ichabod, which means, "Where is the glory?" For she said, "Israel's glory is gone." She named him this because the ark of God had been captured and because her father-in-law and husband were dead.
Can you imagine being like a little baby and you're like, as you're growing up, like, yeah, your mom really didn't want to have you. She's like, "Where's the glory?" And then she died because, you know.
It doesn't say she didn't want to have him. She was vexed about the country's loss and her personal loss. It wasn't like she was upset with having a baby boy.
I mean, but still, like, as a kid, it's kind of traumatic. Like, my name's Ichabod. It means, "Where's the glory?" My mom died on the day I was born. We lost the Ark of the Covenant, too, which is pretty rough, but I know.
I do have one of the saddest birthdays.
Also, my
ever.
dad was a pretty much a jerk who deserved to die. He died the same
But he
day
died
as
too.
well. No,
Yeah. No, worse
and my
birthdays would
grandpa.
stink basically the rest of your life. Every birthday. Day my mom died, day my dad died, day the country lost all of its
Well,
glory.
time to go put some ashes on my head. It's my birthday!
Happy birthday to me.
That's really sad.
You're 100.
And his name reflects this. Verse 22. Then she said, "The glory has departed from Israel, for the ark of God has been captured." So she too, although sad about losing her husband, although sad about losing her father-in-law, was focusing, because she brings it up twice. She's focusing on the ark of God. This is what's so interesting to me. Eli, who did not follow God faithfully, he did a lot of things himself that were good, but he didn't respect God in the way he raised his kids. All these people who treated God like a magic bomb, where they can just like bring it into battle and it will only kill enemies and not them, they know that the Ark of the Covenant is special, important, and above other things. She, in the midst of labor, recognizes the importance of the Ark of God, even over her own family's death. So everyone gets that this thing is immensely important. Everyone gets it. Why doesn't everyone get that God is immensely important? Does that make sense? The reason they lost the battle in the first place was not because they didn't have the ark there on day one. The reason they lost the battle in the first place is because they didn't have God on their side anymore. They had left his side. They had gone astray. That's the reason they lost in the first place. And no one seems to be able to answer that question that's just left hanging in the war room. The why has God allowed us to lose? Why have we failed? Why wasn't he here to protect us? No one can seem to answer this question. And yet, as Caleb brought up, this is a pattern for them. This is not the first time, or the second time, or the third time, or the fourth time, or the fifth time, or the sixth time, or the seventh time, or the eighth time, or the ninth time, or the 11th time. This is not even the 12th time, but this is the 13th time. They have walked away from God and started to suffer problems as an entire country because the entire country has walked away from God. 13 times in a row they've done this. And no one can figure out, why has God not allowed us to win this victory? Ah! But this is human nature.
Do you know off the top of your head how long it's been since they began the rebellion? Because it hasn't been all that long. They're like in
Rebellion
against
God?
Yeah.
Within Eli's
It was-
judgeship.
yeah, it was just
So
within
within
that.
this 40-year period.
So maybe they hadn't actually noticed and they hadn't like.
Oh,
given
you know
account
what?
to the fact that it
Actually,
was Eli and his sons that were kind of.
It was probably even more recent, because the pattern is that the judges sent to end the rebellion. So either either Eli didn't end it. He was so bad at being a judge, everyone just stayed against God from his start all the way to his death. Either that, or, and that would mean it happened a long, long time ago, or they came back to God and then fell away from God during the same 40 years of him being
Which
the
I
judge.
think is more likely.
I'll have to double check my timeline. I don't know which it is. I know at the end of the judge line, which Eli is a part of, they became less and less effective.
Mm-hmm.
the first Judges had much more real revivals, much more real turning back to God, and the latter Judges, it was like God barely scraped them through just by His grace. They really didn't even want it that bad. Guys like Samson were at the end of the judge line.
And then you're just like, come on.
Okay, fine. I guess kill some Philistines.
I mean.
Oh yeah, no, that would make sense because it was a different enemy every time.
Uh-huh.
So if Samson was facing the Philistines too, that would mean this is the same rebellion, just stretched out longer. It went through multiple judges now.
Okay. Yeah,
So yeah, this would actually be multiple generations against God at this point, because Samson couldn't really fix it, and now Eli really hasn't fixed it. That's a bummer.
That is a bummer.
Hadn't really put that together.
I was just curious how long it had been, because if it was like a really short period of time, maybe they hadn't noticed they were in rebellion against God.
No, this is like denial now,
Yeah.
because Eli's been getting them to do the sacrifices and getting them to celebrate the holidays, and they're also, we'll find out in a few coming chapters here, they're also worshiping Baal and
They're back to
Ashtoreth.
sacrificing their children.
They're totally
again,
like sacrificing babies and worshiping false
like,
idols.
no, this is cool.
And going and visiting God at the tabernacle 3 times a year. Cover your bases, right?
Yeah, I know. That's
Slaves to sin.
not how that works.
Essentially,
man.
they're blind to what's going on, because if we're worshiping all the gods, shouldn't all the gods love us?
Well, you're not right.
All right, so where are we at in this story? God said, I'm going to punish your whole family, and it's going to serve as a reminder. This is the cool thing about God's punishments. They're not single-faceted punishments. It's not like you were bad and I'm going to slap your hand. It's like you were bad and I'm going to punish you in a way that teaches you a lesson, and the guy who you know, and your family, and like your descendants, they're going to learn a lesson through the way I punish you. I want everyone to learn that when you are this kind of disobedient, when you are this kind of evil, the punishment is great enough to match how evil your sin was. And so God chooses a punishment that's going to affect multiple generations. We talk about how sad Ichabod's life is. This is part of the lesson, and it's so sad. But think about this for a second. God doesn't have to even cause a woman to die in childbirth. All he has to do is not save her life. That sounds so harsh, but God doesn't up and save every single person. No one would ever die if that was the case, but people die. Our world is fallen. It's full of sin, it's full of death, it's full of bad things, and God does choose to step in sometimes, but it's only when he has a plan to use that miracle, to use that save. Phineas and Hophni, God didn't kick them out of the temple and say, hey, go fight a stupid battle and get yourself killed. All God has to do is take his hands off the situation and say, you really want to do that? You really want to steal my ark and go to a war zone? Oh, okay. Suit yourself. And so Phineas and Hophni go off without God. They steal his box, and they go to a war zone.
The cool thing is in the next chapter you kind of get to see where God's like, all right, now that you guys kind of failed, let me show you that it wasn't my fault because I have the power, but it was your fault because you aren't relying on me.
You aren't relying on me. You're not coming to me to even get my power. You're trying to steal it. That's the sad thing. You can go to God so simply and ask for help. You just pray.
Yeah, you don't have to run.
How easy is that? You don't have to book it back to another town and steal his throne box. That's not a requirement. You just pray. He's right there. Cry out to him. You know how many times people have been doing evil, and then they realize what they've done, they cry out to God, and God's like, I was here the whole time. I will gladly help you. You don't have to like make a big show of it. You don't have to go to the right town at the right time and make the right sacrifice, and then God will be back on your side. Just turn towards him. That's it.
It's like God gets up, make himself a snack. He's like, all right, gonna make myself a snack. He's
Yeah.
like, hey, where's my throne box? Gosh, dang it. That's how I picture it.
Not how it goes.
The most recent conversation the Israelites had with God was like the okay to go into war back in Judges. And then the very next thing is, oh, now your high priest and his children are gonna die. That's like the very next communication with God, just because of how they were acting.
And
Was
this
that the
is-
war when he like took it into his own hands and like was doing weird stuff? Or?
No, it was the war against Benjamin.
Oh, okay.
So the internal civil war that was stupid and should not really have been fought.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one.
God's just like, okay, well, those guys are worse. They're gonna die. And then the very next thing is, and now you're high priest and his sons.
Interesting.
They really haven't been talking to him very much.
Except
This is
when they
emphasized
go
at the
to
beginning
war.
of the book. As you read the first chapter, or second chapter of Samuel, Samuel gets that message from God.
From a different prophet, like a third party. He's like, hey, I'm gonna talk to this third party because he's actually gonna listen. To
Random stranger guy. That's who's going to talk to the high priest. wait a second, shouldn't God have just been talking to the high priest? And then chapter 3, you get a little tiny boy, the servant boy in the tabernacle. God talks to him and not the high priest.
How would that feel to Eli? He's like, well, this isn't going so
At
great.
that point, I think he already knew.
This is that employee at the job who the boss doesn't even fire personally. He can't even face him. He's just like, nope, you're too terrible. You're too bad at your job.
Yes.
It's pretty bad. All right, so the long story short here, God hands out his judgment, but his judgment is the same thing they've been begging for and asking for this whole time. It's him not being in charge. That's all it is. That's all it is. God wants to be in charge. He knows what the perfect decision is in every circumstance. All you have to do is go to him and say, hey, God, what's the perfect decision in this exact circumstance? And then God's like, oh, cool, you actually want me in charge. Here, let me guide you. Let me show you what's up. They don't do that. So they go fight a war they're going to lose because they didn't ask God what they should do. Dad's not home to help his wife through labor. He's off getting killed in a battle. I'm pretty sure the added stress is what pushed this woman over the edge. I can't say that definitively. I'm not a doctor. This is thousands of years ago. But it says, the way it's phrased, is that what triggered her labor was the news of her husband's death, her father-in-law's death, and the loss of the Ark of the Covenant. What that tells me is it wasn't actually her time to go into labor yet. She hadn't actually met her due date. She hadn't actually come to full term. She was going to premature labor, which is a very good way to get yourself hurt, especially thousands of years ago when medical science couldn't just take your vital signs and be like, oh, okay, here's all we need to do. Inject 4 cc's of that and do this and do that and we'll be okay.
4 cc's?
I don't know. I'm not a doctor.
Just like that.
I'm a pastor, not a doctor.
Cardiac.
Dang it, Jim.
The point is, she goes into premature childbirth because she gets all this crazy bad news, which is her evil husband's doing, essentially. He's the one who goes along with this whole thing and lets the Ark of the Covenant get stolen. He's the one who goes and gets killed in a war they didn't ask for God's help with. So all of these things are not God reaching down with lightning going zap, 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 zap. These are people's decisions having repercussions, and God's not miraculously stopping the repercussions. God didn't kick the leg out of Eli's chair. Eli is the one who is the high priest. If anyone could have stopped the Ark of the Covenant from going out to battle, it was Eli. If anyone could have stopped this madness, if anyone could have put this to an end, if you wanted to see his sons not go die, don't let them go to battle. He's in charge.
Well,
if he doesn't want to have the Ark of the Covenant go off to battle too, he's in charge.
They honestly can't move the Ark without priests. Like, that's one of the rules. Nobody can touch the Ark.
And he's in charge of all the priests. But he doesn't put his foot down. He doesn't use his authority to do God's will. He ignores God's will and just lets people do what they want. This is his chief crime, that he allows evil to exist when he is in charge. An evil king does not actually have to do evil. He just has to sit there. You can be a bad king. You can be an evil king by just not stopping evil. Because it is your express job. It is no one's job any higher than it is yours to stop evil. You are absolutely in charge. So if evil keeps existing and you could have stopped it, it's now your fault. Same goes for the high priest. Inside that tabernacle, he is in charge completely. And now where is he sitting? Now he's sitting out at the gate of the city. He's not even at the tabernacle anymore. He has given up on that responsibility, and now all he cares about is it going to get back okay? Is it going to get back okay? If he was that worried about it getting back okay, he should never have let it leave his sight.
His sight? Ha! Good one, Daniel. Moving on, because Eli's blind, guys. In case you missed
No.
that. Ha!
Got that. All right,
Oh,
anyways. So,
Okay, stop.
where does that leave us? Us, 3,500 years later. Think about it like this, guys. You can't control everything, but God has given you certain things that are absolutely yours to control. So give me an example. What's something you are totally in control of? Anyone?
My bathroom schedule.
No, that's not true.
Proper dieting it is.
You never know what.
I'm going with
what's
Christian
fine.
here.
And are you properly
Right?
dieting?
Shush! All of you about bathrooms.
Your attitude.
Your attitude.
Ooh.
Ooh, very true. Very important. Yeah.
What you look at?
What you look at. Interesting. Sometimes you can't help what you see, but you can help what you stare.
Oh.
Yeah. All right, anybody else? What are you completely in control of? Yourself. Self-control. Okay. Anyone else? All right, so if God has given you mastery of these things, and you choose to misuse these things, or, and this is the most dangerous, not control these things. Does that make sense? You don't even have to willingly do the wrong thing. You just have to not enforce God's will on the things you're in control of. Your own life, your own schedule, your own eyes, your own attitude. If you just let these things run rampant and just do what people say, or do what comes naturally, or do what's easy, you can do evil without even trying to do evil. You don't actually have to decide, yes, I will be the world's most diabolical junior hire. No, that's no one does that. No one decides I'm going to ruin everything. But we're really good at it. We're kind of experts at it at times. It's not a great thing to be an expert at.
No.
See, that's where Eli was. Eli was not like his sons. Eli was not going out and stealing from God. Eli was not trying to seduce people. Eli was not trying to tempt people towards sin. He was raising a godly young man in his old age. Doesn't that sound fantastic? Doesn't that sound like a great thing? I mean, no one in their 90s should actually have to raise a child. That's hard work. And when you're 90, you just don't have the energy to keep up with that. But he's still doing it. He's doing good things, guys. But he's allowing evil to exist.
That's against the rules.
That's not just against the rules. It makes him culpable. It makes him part of that evil because it was his job to stop it. Now, it's not your job to stop everything. God has not left the world's evil on your plate. God has not left other people's deeds on your plate. Now, one day you might be a parent. Suddenly you get some increased responsibility. But interestingly, even in the Bible, God does not always account every sin of a child to a parent, only in circumstances where God knows that parent could have stepped in. If he knows the parent couldn't have stepped in, he doesn't hold them accountable. In this instance, he was their boss as well as their dad. He easily could have stepped in. He had every means to step in. So God really held them accountable. So you guys, in charge of yourselves, God's going to hold you accountable for what you do with that. He's not going to hold you accountable for what your sibling does, or your family, or your friends, or that random crazy kid at school. Unless it's you. But he is going to hold you accountable for what do you stare at? What do you do with all your time? Do you exercise self-control? Or you just kind of do what comes naturally? How's your attitude when life is not fair? How's your language? How are your words coming out of your mouth?
And we get punished more harshly because we know it's wrong when we do it, as opposed to those who do it not knowing that it's wrong.
Yeah, it's interesting. God's grace is doled out to every human on the planet, whether they know about him or not, whether they deserve it or not, because really none of us can actually deserve it. So God gives grace in an unfair way. Isn't that interesting? But he only gives punishment in a fair way. That is a very interesting trait of God. And what that means is the more you know how wrong what you're doing is wrong, the more punishment God is fairly able to give you. The more you know how wrong it is, the more fair a punishment will be. The more punishment he can give fairly. So be careful. As Christians, you have your conscience, you have the Holy Spirit, and you have God's word, which reveals what is right and wrong. You have three things, whereas most unbelievers have one. They have their conscience. That's it. And so God can give out punishments to us. But remember how he gives punishments. God isn't the kind of God who just says, you were wrong, you're dead. Or, you were wrong, lightning 5 times, but you're not dead. You're going to have to feel it.
Oh, what?
That's not how God is.
You're not punishment.
God's going to pick a punishment that teaches a lesson.
Tell that to Aiken. Tell that to Aiken.
Which one's Achan?
He stole some stuff.
Oh yeah.
And then he and his family and 5,000 others just taught a lesson to everybody else.
Oh, it did.
He's dead.
Yeah. Israelites are going to war. They're taking things from the people they conquer. God says that stuff has a specific purpose. We're going to meter it out in a certain way so that you guys can't get greedy. And then someone just goes and steals stuff. He didn't like that. So when God punishes us, it's to teach us a lesson. And what's interesting is, as Christians, we have Christ's righteousness covering us. And so the punishment is never going to be final punishment. The punishment's never going to be a punishment to end us. The punishment's always going to be something that tries to lead us back to God. Because now we have ultimate forgiveness. The only punishment now is actually what we call discipline. Does anyone really know what discipline is? Maybe you could give us like your own definition, discipline in your own words. Does anyone know discipline well? Yeah?
Isn't it a lot like self-control?
Oh, interesting. Yeah, you can use it from that angle. I hadn't thought about it like that. So that is self-discipline, though. And sometimes we do shorten that to just discipline. Normally, though, discipline actually implies that there's more than one party. There's actually us and at least one other person. Usually, it implies that. But yeah, you can use it of yourself. Anybody else? Yeah?
So I guess it's kind of like, so if you did something wrong, they do something back to you, to where it's like if you stole something, then you can go to jail for 2 weeks, to where they think that with whatever they've done to you, they think, okay, you will learn your lesson and you will hopefully not do it again.
Correct. So it's not punishment with the intent of damaging you to make things fair. It's punishment with the intent to lead you back in the right direction. Okay, but interestingly, it's not even punishment. That's the weird thing about discipline. The word shares a root with disciple. Do you guys know the word disciple? It's a follower of, someone who learns from someone. So discipline isn't even technically a punishment, it's literally a teaching. And when discipline looks like punishment, it means it's a life teaching. They're not using words, they're not using, a speech. They're actually making you live through something that's meant to teach you. That's discipline. So it could be, almost identical to a punishment. It could look just like a punishment. But it also could be something very different from a punishment. It could be you have to rebuild what you broke. It's not really a punishment to build something. That's not punishment. But it's going to teach you how hard it is to make the thing that you were careless with.
Well,
And then you will start to assign a value to it, and you'll start to say in your own heart, this thing is important, I shouldn't be so careless with it. So you can have a discipline that isn't necessarily punishment at all.
It's adequate responsibility for your actions.
Yeah, you have to take responsibility. They're kind of forcing it on you. You don't really have a choice in this. But the goal is to teach you how important it is to not do the wrong thing and to do the right thing. That's the idea. So when God punishes us, now that we have ultimate forgiveness, He's now going to punish in a more disciplinary way and less of a, what's the word I'm looking for? Punitive. Does anyone know that word, punitive? It's literally from the same word as punishment. They share that P-U-N. That isn't pun. Pun.
Pawn.
So when you're sent to jail because you stole something, the idea is that it would be disciplinary. When you are fined $1,000 for a $50 object, that's called punitive. So rather than making up for what you did wrong, it's just damaging you so that you understand it was really bad. Does that make sense? If you steal something from a store and your parent spanks you, does that fall under punishment or discipline?
Or child abuse.
Yeah.
Think about it for a second. Does that fall under punishment or discipline? Yeah.
I think it falls under discipline because, I think, like, if you're going to do it, like what you said, the punitive thing, I think if you're going to do that, then it would be like, you have to sleep outside for the rest of you, for as long as you live here, something crazy like that. Like, something super weird. But I think that's just discipline. You're going to learn, hey, that's going to happen to me if I steal something.
Interesting. It was a trick question. A spanking is both, but you are right. There could be a further form. So you could have the punishment be like, no video games for 3 weeks.
Oh no.
That's not necessarily discipline because it has nothing to do with what you did wrong. It's just unrelated. A spanking is both, and then discipline would be, I want you to go back in the store. You're going to ask for the manager. You're going to hand them what you stole, and you're going to apologize.
Ooh.
I'm not even going to be there. I'm going to watch from a distance. You're going to do it all by yourself.
Wait,
Laughing.
now, show of hands. Has anyone actually had to do that?
My dad did.
I did it.
Yeah, my
brother
dad had to
did.
do
The only thing I
man.
ever stole,
Oh.
and I was pretty little. I was like 3 or 4, and so I really didn't think I'd done anything wrong. But my mom used it as such a teaching moment. I never stole anything ever again.
Oh.
I was like 3 or 4. We're in Michael's, and one of the fake flowers like fell off of its bouquet and was on the ground. So it's like a fake flower with no stem. I just pick this up and we check out. We go out of the store and we're like in the cart going back towards the car, and I'm playing with this, and she looks down and goes, "Where'd you get that?" It was on the floor. Did you pay for it? No. So then you stole it. I thought I was a criminal. I thought I was the worst human being on the planet. I felt so sick. And she didn't make me go back in, I don't think. But I mean, this was like 3 or 4, so maybe she did and I just don't remember. But I was so traumatized by, like, taking something means now people see you as something different than what you thought yourself to be. Like, I thought myself good, and stealing meant people now
Prove
see
that
me
you
as
were
evil.
Young
evil.
Daniel the philosopher.
That was to me the lowest blow. Like, there was nothing
Daniel.
worse than to be seen as a thief. And so I just couldn't handle it. Like, that was too much. Can't steal. There's like this loss of opinion, and everyone will now see you branded, and just I couldn't handle it. It's too much. And so in that moment, it was discipline. Because there wasn't actually any, like, you know, you're grounded for 3 weeks. There wasn't any, well, you have to now pay them $5 no matter what the flower should have cost. There was nothing punishment-wise, but the discipline in that case was literally just a talking to. But what it did was bring me back to the straight and narrow and showed me how much it was needed I stay there and don't stray off that path again. So that was discipline. She could have spanked me. She could have, you know, fined me. She could have given me, you know, weeks of know this and know that. She didn't. Just discipline. And that's how God operates. He wants us on the straight and narrow. And this is the interesting thing. It's not because he just, you know, hates us when we're evil. He doesn't. It's because he loves us so much, and he knows how much evil can hurt us. He wants us on the straight and narrow so we aren't getting hurt in the process. He also wants us on the straight and narrow so that his other kids aren't getting hurt in the process. He's being protective when he disciplines. That's the thing we have to remind ourselves of. Sometimes we have to learn a hard lesson, and it is not fun to learn. And what we need to be reminded of in those moments is that God's actually looking out for us, not just coming down on us. That's hard. Sometimes I have to discipline you guys, junior hires, when you step out of line. And it's really easy when someone who hasn't spoken harsh to you before, when someone who hasn't told you you did something wrong before, suddenly has to tell you you did something wrong. It's really easy for you guys to take that as me coming down on you. I don't like you. That Daniel's mean. But it's the same as with God. I just want to bring you guys back towards something that's healthy for you. I want to bring you back towards a life with God where you're not stepping out of line, where you're not hurting yourself and other people. That's my heart. And that's painful for you guys. So when your parents have to do it, give them some respect. They're going through something that's very awkward. They have to cause discomfort to someone they love. That's actually really hard. But we do it because we love you guys. God does it because he loves you guys. And as harsh as this whole situation in 1 Samuel is, he did this because he loves his people. Not just Eli, not just Hophni and Phinehas. He loves the whole nation. So he did what he had to do. Bring people back into the straight and narrow. Take them away from the evilness. And in this case, we're going to see it actually come to fruition. We're going to see another good leader rise up in Samuel, the little boy at this point in the story. He'll start leading the country back towards God, and good things are going to happen. It is. It's the hand of God working in people's hearts. It's the most impressive miracle there is. All right, let's pray. Lord, we ask that you would discipline us when we step out of line, and that we would respond well. that we wouldn't take it wrong, that we wouldn't keep hard-headedly trying to hold on to our sin. That we would see your discipline for what it is, you lovingly leading us back towards you. Help us, Lord, to never need so much discipline as we've seen in 1 Samuel. May we never get that far off the path. But we know, Lord, that if we ever did go that far wrong, that you would still love us, and we thank you for that. And that you would still forgive us, and we thank you for that. Help us, Lord, as we tear through your word and read all these many interesting and crazy stories out of history. You would just continue to draw us close to your heart. The way you love an entire nation and protect them by guiding their leadership, whether they submit or not. Lord, it shows how strong and how fierce you love your children. We ask, Lord, that you would be with our leaders, as so many of them don't know you. You would guide them, that they would find you in their position of power and realize that you are the one who needs to be in charge. Help our families, Lord. We know there are people in our families who don't know you. Please, Lord, soften their hearts. Give us opportunity to share your love, your grace, and your gospel with them. Lord, we want to see people turn towards you before it gets this bad. Help us, Lord, to be instrumental in that. Help us to be the catalyst, the tool that you get to use. Help us to walk in that grace and to realize that you are blessing us even if we don't deserve it. Keep us thankful of that. Keep us humble. With our heads bowed and our eyes closed, if there's anyone here today that's never before reached out to God and said, I need that forgiveness. I need everything I've done wiped away. I need my slate cleared. If you're sitting here today and you're just not even sure if you're going to heaven or not, the Bible makes it very simple. It says that we all deserve hell, but that God loves us too much, and he provided a way for us to go to heaven, for us to be forgiven, for us to have a real relationship with him. That through what his son did, taking our punishment even though he deserved none, that he now has a way to forgive us. He has a way to take away what we've done wrong. And so if you want to take hold of that this morning, if you want to say, God, forgive me, a sinner, for every great and small thing I've ever done wrong, I just ask you to raise up your hand. Hand won't change anything. It's just to show me that you want this. And I'll pray with you, and you can actually talk to God. I'll lead you, but you can talk to him. You can ask him to forgive you. You can ask him to wipe away everything you've ever done wrong. Anyone this morning need that? Lord, we ask that you would bless these junior hires as they go. Help them to be followers of you, disciples of you, that take control of the things you've given them control of, and trust you with everything else. We ask all these things in your name. Amen. I love you guys. We are going to have a party on Halloween here at the church. I don't have details yet, but they will be coming soon.
Also Tuesday nights.
Oh yes, thank you. We are now having a new Tuesday night weekly event. If you guys want to come hang out, it's called Open Room. There's going to be worship practice for anyone who's interested in the worship team, but there's also just a lot of fun hangout time. And the time it starts on Tuesday night is
5:30.
5:30, and it runs until
6:30.
6:30. It's just 1 hour here in the room to hang out. You can play some games. You can talk. You can just.
And
be
if we
your
start
hires
getting like
together.
more people showing up, then like we can make it longer and stuff. But right now we're just doing an hour, and then you go from there. So Tuesday nights, 5:30.
You're always free to
Tell your
bring
friends.
snacks. Just come hang and have fun.
Yep.
Christian wins.
Yay. What?
Whatever, Christian.
I was really hoping you'd lose. I'm sorry, but Caleb,
What?
when you're so confident in yourself, he wins every time. Every time.
It hasn't. This will be the inaugural Tuesday.
So is this
Crud.
worship team practice then?
Yes, but he's talking about moving it out of the room.
Oh,
So they might do practice like in the main sanctuary.
Oh, okay.
So it's just an overlap in time.
Are you using the mic?
Facilitates
Alright.
siblings and things.
Gotcha.
And then people who want to
Because you
do
didn't pass me the right.
worship practice more than hang out can still use this room. It's still here for, the random use, whereas he would be using, like, say the main sanctuary weekly, every single week. So,
We're practicing in Shrewsbury Street, main sanctuary,
oh, there you go.
for this
Okay, Cody.
every other Friday. So just so you know,
Oh, okay, cool.
next Sunday will be our big dance. So I was gonna join us.
Yeah.
So this is next Sunday?
I won't be here.
I'm not gonna be here. I'll tune in. I'll watch online. Andrew is gonna cover for me next Sunday.
Awesome, dude.
He gets a heck of a lesson too. Have you looked at it yet?
Yeah.
What are you doing?
It's all the plagues.
It's the next 2 chapters.
Oh,
They're shorter
boy.
and they go together.
In
It's
Samuel?
everything that happens to the
As the
and
Philistines
then-
have the ark, all this bad stuff that befalls
Oh,
them.
Like
And
they
then,
like
they
set it
send-
at Dagon, and Dagon's like facing down, like bowing his head. Like, oh, Dagon, you're supposed to do that. Raise it back up. It does it again.
It's a
that's
statue.
gonna be fun.
A statue
No, I
bowing
remember.
down. Oh, it's
That's
amazing.
crazy.
Yeah. My favorite is when they actually have real wise men in their country, and they're like, "How do we get this forgiven? How do we
Oh,
pay
yeah.
back God?" And they're like, do this and do this and do this, and if everything defies all the odds, then you know that not only did God actually hurt you in the first place, but that He forgives you too. And it was like, take cows that have never pulled a load before in their entire lives, put their children in cages, like put the calves in cages, and then tie them to the cart and see which way they go. And if they walk the exact right direction away from their kids, it's God.
That's a perfect way.
And then to send it back, they just put it in like a thing of oxygen. Like, we're just gonna send this thing out. It's gonna go where it goes, and it just goes
They
right
follow
through
the
it.
distance. They're like
Just
watching
goes
it
all
like
the way to the
spies.
Israelites.
And it goes down the road all the way back to exactly where it should go.
All the way to
It's
Shiloh.
ridiculous.
Oh man, that's gonna be fun with you, John.
Yeah, and then they make golden
Hey,
tumors.
Cody.
Their sacrifice is making golden versions of what was plaguing them, which was rats and tumors. So they make golden rats and they make golden tumors.
Well, I mean, they
Golden
did just
tumors.
get a lot
As
of
like an
gold from
offering.
conquering
Nice.
Israel. So I mean,
That's
might as well just
true.
use it.
That's I hadn't thought of it
It's a
from that angle.
perfect
That's good.
spinning technique.
That's really funny.
You have to
Well, cool. I was telling Danielle to next Sunday when you're teaching, that's gonna be our first band
Oh,
on
we got a
Sunday.
band.
So you get a whole full band.
Oh,
We got
man.
piano, Christy Luber, and
Oh,
Owen
wow.
Bechtold, and Liam and I.